Finding jobs in Haiti for young Haitian, it's like crossing the Sahara. I was home, I was doing nothing, I had no jobs. When I heard about Samasource, I went to the office and I passed an interview and they hired me because I was good. Samasource pays us for doing little tasks on computers. After the earthquake, there was a lot of Haitian in shelters. We received messages from them, we translate them into English from Creole or French, and we help them to find help from NGOs that can help them. If I want to be proud of my country, I think I have to help my country, and I am working hard to do it. In the past, I think internet was a place to search something you need, but now I know we can work directly on internet. The internet just keeps you in contact with the rest of the world. Before, my parents were supporting me, but now I am supporting myself. I can buy books, I can buy food, whatever I needed. Now I am studying chemistry. I would like to be a biochemist, and I would like to help my country by testing the food they are eating. I just hope that Samasource will keep helping Haitian workers and Haitian people in a very hard situation.
So I feel a little bad because I'm always the Debbie Downer at these conferences talking about poverty, but I promise it's going to be uplifting and hopeful. And I'm going to start my talk by telling you about Martin Luther King. Yes, I am bringing MLK to the WEAR conference. This morning I walked by my favorite memorial in the city, which is the MLK Memorial around the corner in Yerba Buena Gardens. And I reread my favorite quote of his from his Nobel Prize acceptance speech. He said, "I have the audacity to believe that people everywhere can afford 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits." 3 meals a day, education and culture, and dignity, equality, and freedom. But despite all of the technological and material advances that we've made since Martin Luther King left us, we still live in a world where 4 billion people earn less than $3 a day. And that's adjusted for purchasing power. So that's what $3 would buy you in the US in 2005. Just imagine that. Could you imagine what it would be like to live on that kind of a paycheck? Most likely you'd be stuck in an informal job doing something like basic agriculture or manual labor or domestic work, and you'd be exposed to conditions that were outlawed in the West 100 years ago. This is a photo I took last year in northern India in a state called Jharkhand, which is the mining capital of the country, where thousands of men like this man make their living by hauling coal on their heads out of mines and bicycling into town and selling their product for $2 a day. Most poor people in the developing world earn their living this way, doing jobs in the informal sector with no protection. And because they don't earn enough, we then have to support them through charity and by spending billions of dollars in foreign aid. But we think there's a better way. What if we could satisfy Dr. King's not-so-audacious belief by connecting poor people to dignified, better-paid work on the internet? A few years ago, when I was on vacation in Kenya, I stumbled into the answer with the help of a young man named Steve Muthee. He was 25 at the time, and he was running a little internet cafe in Nairobi. And those of you who've traveled to the developing world know that there are internet cafes all over the place now, and poor people use them to check their email, to connect with relatives abroad, to get information about crop prices and the like. And Steve told me about his city's vast unemployment problem. Up to 70% of young people graduating from high school in Kenya, and this is a country where people speak good English and have decent schooling, up to 70% of them leave high school and can't find jobs afterward. And because there are so few ways for them to earn a living, many of these kids end up joining gangs or militia groups. I'm sure all of you saw, or some of you saw, the Joseph Kony video that came out and went viral and got to 100 million views. The reason we have militias in Africa is not because people there are any different from us, but because it's actually the rational choice for a young man there to go and join a militia group because he can get paid $1 a day and support his family. So I asked Steve what sort of talent these kids who are standing on the side of the road selling stuff or joining these militia groups, what sort of talent they had. And he told me something surprising. He said, Kenya has one of the highest literacy rates in Africa, and 95% of people under 30 can read and write decent English. So almost everyone in the new generation knows English, and many of them now have Facebook accounts and cell phones, so they're pretty up to speed on how to use the internet. And on top of that, the country has received a couple of new fiber optic cables in the last year that have dramatically brought down the cost of getting online. Now, I had just read Tom Friedman's book, The World is Flat, and I had thought if outsourcing was generating billions of dollars for a few guys in India and China, why couldn't it generate a few dollars for billions of people across the developing world? And what a great solution this would be. We wouldn't have to pump foreign aid into these countries. We could actually give people work. And if there's one thing that countries like Kenya have in abundance, it's human brain power. There's so much latent capacity that's sitting there going underutilized. So rather than wait for the country to have a ton of infrastructure to develop roads and traditional infrastructure and build factories, you can circumvent all that and get people working online. And so armed with this idea, I decided I would quit my job, leave the comfort of management consulting in New York, and launch a social business, as is customary from a friend's futon in Palo Alto. And I started a company called Samasource. So Sama means equal in Sanskrit, and our mission is to alleviate poverty while helping our customers solve messy data problems by connecting them to a new source of talent in the developing world. So we train, we manage, and we pay an army of agents through a technology platform that we built that divides data projects into small tasks, or microwork. And unlike crowdsourcing, we have dedicated workers. So our workers are known, we interact with them every day, we train them, we take responsibility for the quality of the work. And we also have project management in San Francisco, so it's really easy for companies to get started working with us. So here's an example of the kind of work that we do. One of the world's largest providers of geodata and maps content, they came to us and they said, we have hundreds of thousands of points of interest in parts of the world where we can't find phone numbers. In places like Africa and the Middle East, we wouldn't even know where to begin to find phone numbers in these locations. And when we can find them, they're usually inaccurate. So Samasource workers, through our platform, were given a list of foreign places and use Google and the web to find proper phone numbers and validate the phone numbers with the companies themselves. So this enables our customer to have highly accurate data, much more accurate than you can get with more traditional crowdsourcing because our workers depend on this income to get by. And the data is up to date. We can update it in real time around the world. And we built this platform, which we call the Sama Hub, which allows our workers to log in and get paid per task. So what we found is that this really incentivizes people to do great quality work. They start competing with their friends. We've even established competitions between countries so that workers in Kenya are competing with workers in India. And as is the norm, we have some game dynamics. You can see people have progress bars, and people can see the status of their work as they're going. And what we found is that the applications of this model extend to so many different types of work that pretty much every major company has. We've mined data on local businesses. We've cleaned up product catalogs, for companies like Goodzer, companies like eBay and Walmart. And we've even tagged images to support augmented reality applications in games. And what's cool about our model is that we're actually incorporated as a nonprofit. So because we can take on lower margin work, we can pass on a lot of value to our customers because we don't need to make huge margins for investors. So what's amazing at the end of the day is that Microwork allows people in these little digital factories, like the one that you saw in the video, to do this work for major companies and get paid. And it's tremendously satisfying for them. It's real money for some of the world's poorest people. When I first met Steve, who I told you about earlier, he had 4 people working in his internet cafe. And they were staff, they were doing IT, they were supporting the customers who came in. He's now grown his business to over 150 people because of our platform, because he's now able to hire these agents to do work for big companies. And the challenge that a lot of these smaller entrepreneurs have is that that work doesn't exist in places like Kenya. You can't find a big outsourcing deal in Nairobi because companies there don't have the maturity to have lots of data to send to these workers. So we're providing a real value to people like Steve, and we're actually expanding into the US this year. So soon you'll see a Samasource site in Bayview will be our first location. And I thought I would just conclude by sharing a couple of stories. So we've now paid out over $2 million in wages, directly benefiting about 10,000 people, including people like Shaleen, who's a woman in our center in Haiti who supports 9 people with the income that she earns with us. And a lot of our workers are like her. They use the money to go back to school after a year or 2 of working with us. So she's going back to school to pursue nursing. This is a young woman named Neha who is 20 years old, and she's from a very conservative Muslim area in India where women are traditionally not allowed to work outside the home. But we set up an all-women center so she can go there and she can do this work. She's actually doing work for LinkedIn from this very small community in northern India. And she's so into the work that her friends have started calling her an insect of the computer. That's what she told me in an interview last year. And then lastly, we have Sam and Tony. These are 2 young men. These are the kinds of young men who get recruited into militia and rebel groups. And now Tony is putting his younger sister through school because he's earning a paycheck. And for a lot of our workers, this is more than just income. It's dignity. It's a chance to do something and get paid and be a breadwinner in your family rather than having to join a militia or rebel group. Right now, there are billions of dollars of this type of work sitting within companies like yours. Imagine if you could get all of this messy data work done and address poverty for free at no additional cost. That's what you can do with a model like Samasource. And it's my hope that through this, we can satisfy Dr. King's not so audacious belief that everyone can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. Thank you.